Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and it's a pleasure not to no longer feel alone. I mean, you're out here on the front line. It feels like you're the only one who's not happy with the way things are going. But unlike a lot of my colleagues, I don't believe that we're powerless. And I want to challenge you in this talk to go out amongst your peers and try to get them to stop settling for the status quo. Because our livelihood, our profession depends on us being courageous about this. So I have a question for you guys. Do you ever wonder how we as physicians got to this point? How do we go from having a personal relationship with our patients, where decisions regarding care was decided and carried out without the insertion of the middleman? How do we go from being independent entrepreneurs, by and large, who could open an independent practice and make a comfortable living by getting paid fairly for what we do, to struggling to keep our doors open because reimbursements have failed to keep up with the cost of doing business? How do we go from having a strong, trusting relationship with our patients, where we were seen as someone who had their best interest at heart, to someone who's considered to be the enemy, who's only interested in collecting a deductible? I'm sure most, if not all of you in this room, went into medicine because you were committed to taking care of your patients and making a difference. And with a show of hands, if you can tell me, how many people still look forward to getting up and going to work in the morning? And how many of you still love what you do? We need to extend that to our colleagues. Just a little background. Because when I started out on my journey that led me to hosting a show and writing blogs to educate the public about what's really happening in medicine, I learned about the decisions that were made a long time ago that subsequently destroyed the foundation of our system. And let me tell you, it was eye-opening. I went into practice in the late 1990s during the growth of the HMO and capitation phase. The fall of reimbursements and the rise in the power of the insurance companies have been constants in my career. And I decided very early on in my practice that I wanted to maintain the model of a patient-centered approach. And I didn't want to hire extenders. I chose not to use volume to make up my difference. And instead, I chose to provide ancillary services that could increase the cash basis of my practice. And despite the changes, I found that each year in practice, I was more focused on the business of practicing medicine and keeping my practice operating instead of patient care. And although I became very good at managing to play the game, it's only become harder and more frustrating because of government regulations and arbitrary insurance rules. But the problem started long before the 90s. Believe it or not, Blue Cross Blue Shield was one of the first insurance companies, and it was started by physicians. And I don't know where the train went off the track, but somehow it stopped working. Things began to change for the worse when insurance companies got into the business of extending care and coverage to day-to-day encounters like office visits. Initially, when coverage was started, it was largely catastrophic and major medical. And there was cost containment because people could actually know and be aware of what the costs were. Simply put, the insertion of the middleman disconnected the patient from real costs, thereby increasing patient volume. And the insurance company's answer to this was to artificially decrease our reimbursements. They allowed the dreaded allowed amount, bundling, free global care for up to 90 days. We're all aware of how we've been nickel and dimed. And the government then got into the act by setting Medicare rates and coverage, once again, at levels which had nothing to do with the costs of practicing medicine in the real world. When the insurance companies adopted their reimbursement and payment policies to reflect Medicare policies and rates, that was the beginning of the slide to where we are now. And there were two factors, in my opinion, which smoothed the way for this process to happen. One was the insatiable desire of patients to want to get something for nothing. When I first practiced, there was no deductible or copay. It was just maybe $5 or $10, and that was it, and maybe zero. The second factor, which I think as physicians, as a group, we need to take responsibility for, was physician fear. The fear that we would lose patients, that we would be out of business if we didn't sign up for insurance. And in short, it was greed and fear as the two factors which led us into the loss of healthcare as we know it. Or I should say, it led us to the practice of healthcare as we know it. So where are we now? This is where we stand in the age of Obamacare. And Congressman Price was excellent at describing it from a congressional government standpoint. But from someone who's in private practice, having to make ends meet, to make payroll, it's even more stark. Our practice guidelines are no longer governed by our medical societies, but instead by the pharmaceutical industry and bureaucrats in the form of evidence-based medicine. Bureaucratic committees such as the Coordinating Council on Comparative Research and the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology have been created by Obamacare to oversee and control what we as physicians do. For those of you who don't know, the Coordinating Council on Comparative Research is a 15-member panel chosen by the President, tasked with controlling the cost of healthcare delivery. And it essentially turns the patient into a cost center. It guts individualized approach to patient care and destroys the art of practicing medicine. We've already seen the effects of this with examples such as Avastin and the fact that it's no longer covered by Medicare for certain cancers, all in the name of saving money. The National Coordinator for Health Information Technology has a mandate to, quote, determine treatment at the time and place of care, unquote. That means they are charged with deciding the course of treatment for a diagnosis given by a physician. And taken to its most logical extent, they're going to decide how you treat a cold or a sinus infection. They're going to decide what antibiotic, what decongestant you use, how long it should take for the patient to get better. And of course, if the patient doesn't fall within those parameters, you may not get paid. When you know this, it becomes obvious why there's been a big push towards the implementation of universal electronic medical use. It will become a tool that will be used to completely control the physician and the patient. And if we don't follow evidence medicine-based guidelines, we will be punished. Perhaps we won't get paid, or maybe we'll have reimbursements clawed back. That would be benign, because in Obamacare, there's a provision that goes into effect on January 1st, 2013, that those who don't perform, quote, meaningful use of the system over time, unquote, will be fined $100,000 for the first offense and receive jail time for the second. In short, those physicians who choose to practice individualized patient care in consultation with their patients will be punished. First, the carrot of getting a tax deduction to adopt the electronic medical system, then the stick to use it, or else. To ensure that there is strict cost containment, Obamacare creates yet another 15-member panel, the Medicare Independent Payment Advisory Board, the IPAB, and this oversees healthcare costs. Congressman Price talked eloquently about it. And like the other panels, this one consists of individuals appointed by the President, confirmed by Congress, and there are two ingredients which, to me, are chilling. They're not independent because they're appointed, and there's no mandate in the law that the panel contain practicing physicians. So they can be chock full of special interests, bureaucrats, who have no idea what it means to practice medicine. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? While we were keeping our heads down, not complaining, taking care of our patients the best way we could by working harder for less, we have been steadily losing ground. Our profession has been taken over by bureaucrats, pundits who claim to know about healthcare and how to fix it, corporate interests that have steadily undermined our autonomy, and more importantly, our ability to provide quality care for our patients has been restricted. I don't have to tell you that we're under siege. Physicians have been put in an untenable position. Organizations like the AMA were more interested in making money on the backs of doctors selling codes to eugenics than they were about protecting the very people for whom they were supposed to be advocating. Ever wonder who stands to gain when the coding system changes yearly and you have to buy another $400 coding manual? Or you have to go to an expensive coding course every year when the diagnoses and treatments barely change year to year? The looming regulations of Obamacare now put us in a position where our patients' private medical information will no longer be private. Over the past several days, the Human Health Services Department announced that insurance companies will be required to share their information electronically. So when the electronic medical system comes on full line, the government will have access to it. And the government will simply be linked to the electronic medical record system. And it makes me wonder, I hope it makes you wonder too, what it will do to the ability of our patients to tell us the truth and therefore give us the ability to take care of them without them looking over their shoulders and worrying about getting a government reprisal for telling the truth. Within the last several days, in the name of fighting global warming, the EPA has mandated the removal of over-the-counter inhalers for asthma. Now the patient will have to pay more for a prescription, then that might mean they might forego care. And when you add this to the provision in Obamacare that does not allow the individual to use their health savings account for over-the-counter medications, but only brand-name prescriptions, you have to wonder who wrote this bill. It certainly wasn't written to contain costs. And I submit, just like Congressman Price said, it's all about control. These are some of the examples of government insertion that logically could have been predicted to increase costs. But what about the unintended consequences? The examples of the erosion of the doctor-patient relationship are myriad. Two examples come to mind are one, the rise of the physician extender, and nurses who have both had an expansion of their scope of practice. Now in some states, they have the ability to write prescriptions, see patients without physician oversight. And Obamacare extends this by providing funds for increasing training of these of these extenders because there's not enough physicians to offer care. These are just two examples, but where will it stop? I believe we have come to a crossroads, and we as physicians now are in a position where we have no choice but to speak up as advocates for our patients. I chose to use the media to educate my patients because I got tired of pundits who were not physicians espousing their ideas on how to make that medical system better. And I wanted to have a voice for the practicing clinical physician who's on the ground, making it work every day. And I've gotten an amazing response. I found out that our patients are no happier than we are about this system. They have the ability to be powerful allies in the fight to get medicine back on the right track. And there's something that the congressman said that I actually already pretty much knew, that they were going to come down with a hammer. If we didn't play ball, they were going to make it mandated. But if the patients are on our side and the patients go to Congress with real examples of, I want my doctor to be able to talk to me for 20 minutes, half an hour, know my name, not just write a prescription and walk out the door, then we have a powerful ally because they can come up to the congressperson and be an advocate for us just as much as we can for them, and together we're unbeatable. So although we have a lot of obstacles, I'm an optimist. Don't sound like it, but I actually am. And I believe we have the power to reverse this process. One, by informing our patients, we give them the power to demand something better. And patients have been amazed by foregoing their insurance and paying as a self-pay patient the cost of things like lab work, radiology tests, outpatient surgeries. The cost of medications are actually less when they don't access their insurance because deductibles and coinsurance has just gone through the roof. And we as physicians at this point have the ability to opt out before it becomes mandated. We need to make our move. It sounds like a difficult task, but it has the potential to put the brakes on this runaway train. How long are we supposed to continue to play a game where the rules are stacked against us? You get a procedure pre-certified, and they deny it after the fact. They change the fee schedule without telling you. They change coding rules without telling you. They have dropped reimbursements so low that you are forced out of business, or you have no choice but to join the staff of a hospital, or to find the safety of a large medical group. For me, my allegiance to the Hippocratic Oath outweighs the fear and intimidation that is trying to force me to work against the best interests of my patients. And I hope that each and every one of you feels the same way, which apparently you do, which is awesome. So although everybody wants to ignore it, the fact is this: the medical healthcare system needs us, and it cannot work without us. And each and every one of us has the power to take back this control. I submit to you that maybe we should just stop playing the game. Thank you.
Take a few questions.
Absolutely.
We think it's absolutely awesome that we found Dr. George, and she's agreed to take a few questions or comments. We have a little time.
I have a comment and a question. Your thought about how patients are worried whether they'd be able to tell their doctors the truth or not.
Right.
Most of us have been in the position worrying about insurance reimbursement or Medicare or whatever, and I came up with a 5-word summary. Bad conscience is bad medicine. And this applies to the conscience clauses that there's been so much debate about. It's all been about the practitioner instead of the patient. Because if we lose that trust, if we have to lie to patients because, well, will their insurance cover it? Will Medicare kick it out or not? The patients get worried just as they get worried because they know their insurance coverage might not cover it. Would you care to comment or elucidate that further?
You know, for me, and I think we're all in the same position here, when a patient accesses care with us, we want to do the best we can for them. I don't think about what insurance is going to cover. I don't think about playing a game with insurance, but I am honest with the patient. And if they understand that my hands are tied because of some random insurance policy, I think it gives them the power to go and complain. No one listens to us. We can complain, we know this. We can complain all day. But when the patient starts into the mix, it's a whole different ballgame. We've gotten into the habit of doing 3-way calls. So you get the insurance company on the phone with the patient. It's amazing. The whole tone of the conversation changes immediately when the patient pipes up. It's like they say one thing to us and one thing to them, and they can see it. We need to start doing something like that. Yes.
Dr. George, 2 quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
Where can we find your radio show? And for those that aren't local, is it online also?
It is online, and it's on iTunes. It's called Medicine on Call. And it started off as, how do you stay healthy? And somehow along Obamacare, it just became very political. Every week it just got more political, and I just wanted to be a voice in the wilderness. And there's a lot of people out there who really want to know the truth, and they're not afraid to hear it. And I think if we can just use this as a platform, our passion, our pain, our anger about the system, we're really not alone. I'm blessed to find out that I'm not alone here, but our patients are willing to work with us. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can really make a difference. And you just go to Medicine On. If you look at Medicine On Call online, you should pop up, or either under my name.
MedicineOnCall.com, or just
right.
Google Medicine.
Well, Medicine On Call, just straight, and then it'll come up under Radio Sandy Springs.
Oh, okay. And in my book, Medicrats, I talk about the same thing, engaging patients, and it's a powerful message. So thank you very much.
Very much so.
Is there a way in our time-packed schedule to be able to get kind of bullet formats like the bills that you were talking about, where we could put up just a couple sentence thing, maybe attach them on the bottom of the bills that we send patients, put them in patient room, getting information like that. What's going to happen with the electronic medical record with Obama? A lot of us don't know that, and I mean, you can search around and pick up on the internet a little bit here, a little bit there, and you don't know what's really true and what's not. If you have any recommendations for that.
I think that's a really good idea. I also think that you can send them to websites that kind of distill everything down to what they need to know. I write a blog about once a week, and in my blogs I always have links to the original article, the original government legislation that I'm speaking about. So I'm asking people, don't take my word for it, go and read it. Do some work. There's nothing wrong with questioning what's going on. My problem is the people who don't read anything and don't know anything who complain and basically are fed this line of doctors are evil. We're all driving around with multi-million-dollar cars and living in 3 or 4 houses, and it's completely untrue. And as long as we take it, they're going to dish it. So that's really where I'm coming to the point of, I tried to play the game. I played it really well. It doesn't work. It is stacked against us. This is an unfair, unlevel playing field. And if we keep playing expecting a different result, we will be government drones at some point. That's how I see it.
Thank you. I would like to suggest that this organization, AAPS, do a national poll as to how patients really feel about impending Obamacare and the alternatives. I was going to publish a poll myself in USA Today, but they wanted like $15,000 for the ad, and I didn't want to pay the $15,000. But we all agree with the message. And when I discussed healthcare issues with my patients or small business people, they all agreed with this concept. Mm-hmm. But there's no scientific study to prove this on a national level. I would like to suggest that this organization do a national poll as to how patients, citizens of the United States, really feel about this.
You know, actually, I'd like to extend that. If we could somehow get a poll together that shows that the cost of health care with the middleman inserted are what's driving the cost, not the doctor fee. That would be the way to kill this completely.
Thank you, Dr. George. It was very nice.